All right, guys, before getting into today's video topic, I do want to take a minute to acknowledge the fact that there was no Press X podcast episode today. I do want to apologize to those of you who are looking forward to it and those of you who have been patiently awaiting its return. But unfortunately, due to current circumstances in my personal life, it's been nearly impossible for me to properly prepare for another episode. But I do want to reassure everybody that it's not going anywhere. Press X Podcast is a staple of the channel and it will be returning. I'm hoping it can return as soon as next Sunday. If not, I will let you know. In the meantime, I'm trying to do my best to keep the regular content flowing as much as I can here on the channel. I do think it works out, honestly, in our favor because there's not a whole lot going on right now in the gaming industry. So hopefully by the time it does return, there will be a lot more to talk about and discuss, and it will make for a great return of Press X Podcast. But I just want to reassure everybody that it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay, and it will be returning hopefully sooner rather than later. I also just want to thank everybody for your continued understanding and support. But we are going to be talking about a pretty significant piece of news that has come out, and I think it might be more significant than some people might realize, as Sony has officially retired the Killzone franchise website. So yeah, let's go over some of the information here and talk about what this might mean for the future of the Killzone franchise, what it means for the second AAA B team, if that's what you want to call it, that's currently working on another title alongside Horizon Forbidden West, because a lot of people have been holding out hope that this is the return of Killzone. They're working on another proper Killzone title, but now it seems very unlikely that that's the case here. So it says Sony has retired its official Killzone franchise website, affecting some online features and seemingly casting the franchise's immediate future in some doubt. A notice on Killzone.com has announced that going forward, visitors to Killzone.com will be directed to PlayStation.com, but no clarification is offered on what it means for the future of the Guerrilla Games series. The official website for the Killzone franchise has retired, the website notice reads. While this change does not affect the online multiplayer modes, player statistics, or ranking data for Killzone Mercenary and Killzone Shadowfall, it is now no longer possible to create or manage clans in Killzone Shadowfall. We apologize for this inconvenience. Thank you to all the Killzone.com's many fans and visitors throughout the years for their enthusiasm and support. The Killzone series was once one of PlayStation's flagship franchises, with 6 installments released across PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and handheld consoles in the 9 years following its 2004 debut. However, the series hasn't seen a release since 2013's PS4 launch game Killzone Shadowfall, and its developer seems very much focused on its action-adventure series Horizon. See, what's interesting is that they're not mentioning anything about the second team that Guerrilla Games has that's currently working on a second AAA project. And it's understandable why they wouldn't mention this, because Sony nor Guerrilla Games has talked about this in any official capacity. But make no mistake, it is a real thing and it does exist. And I would assume, based off of how long we've known of this secret exclusive title's existence, that we will learn about it hopefully this year. And so I want to give you guys a little bit of a refresher on what exactly we're talking about and why it seems much more likely at this point that this second Guerrilla Games team is working on either the return of SOCOM. If not that, they may be working on a new IP. But whatever they are working on is a multiplayer title of some sort, and it does seem very likely that it's going to be some type of shooter, maybe a third-person tactical shooter or a first-person shooter, depending. Now, I'm going to assume it's not going to be a first-person shooter because that's what Killzone is, but we don't know. It could, frankly, be anything. It could even be some type of multiplayer standalone project for the Horizon series, for all we know. But I have an article here that comes from Game Informer, and this article was actually published on October 7th, 2018. That's how long this game has been in either early production or development. And it says Guerrilla Games recruiting Rainbow Six Siege devs for secret project. Guerrilla Games, the developer behind the Killzone series and Horizon Zero Dawn, has recently been hiring from Ubisoft's Rainbow Six Siege team to work on a secret project. Mention of Guerrilla's secret game and the recent hired employees was spotted by an eagle-eyed Reset-era user. They pointed out that 2 former Rainbow Six Siege developers joined Guerrilla this year to work on an unannounced game, and that Simon LaRouche, Siege's game director, was also recruited. Considering Guerrilla is hiring developers who have expertise with online multiplayer, it suggests that this secret title will either be a fully multiplayer game or have heavy online multiplayer components. This could mean a new entry to Killzone, something related to Horizon Zero Dawn sequel, or a new IP altogether. Now, what is interesting about going back and reading these articles is at the time of these articles being written up and this being reported on, we had no idea that Horizon Forbidden West was a thing. We assumed that it would be a thing, and we were right in that assumption because it is. But I think this, kind of lends credence to this idea that I've been talking about for some time now, which is Sony plans to grow their teams internally organically. They've said this themselves, but this is how we're seeing it done. We're seeing them basically have 2 AAA-sized development teams under one studio name and allow them to do 2 different things. I think the big question at this point is not whether this is going to be a multiplayer game. I think that's obvious, and I'm going to tell you why that's obvious in a minute. I think the big question is, what exactly is this game going to be? Is it going to be Killzone? Well, it seems very unlikely at this point that it's going to be Killzone, so I think we can rule that out. I only say that because if this was going to be the return of Killzone, I have no idea why Sony would decide out of the blue to just retire the Killzone.com website. It just doesn't make any sense, right? There would be no reason for them to do that if Killzone was set to make a return. A lot of people believe it might be SOCOM due to the fact that we have heard rumors in the past. I don't know where they stemmed from, honestly, so it could just literally be people saying, I hope we see the return of SOCOM, but there's been talk of that for some time now because it's been a while since we've seen SOCOM, and it would make sense for that game to return. I think the only thing that people get hung up on is, would it make sense for Guerrilla Games to be making it? But when you hear that they're hiring multiple people who worked on Rainbow Six Siege, especially the individual who directed that title, it would make a lot of sense, right? But I want to refer to another article that was written up in 2019. This actually comes from WCCF Tech, where they talk about this a little bit more. It says, what's next for PlayStation exclusive developer Guerrilla Games? The studio scored a major critical and commercial hit in 2017 with Horizon Zero Dawn, but we haven't heard much from them in recent months. The studio did expand from 250 to 400 employees in 2018, so we know something big has to be in the works, perhaps multiple titles. Well, we may have some fresh clues courtesy of a new tweet and job listing. The tweet comes from Simon LaRouche, who previously directed Rainbow Six Siege for Ubisoft and is currently heading up an unannounced project for Guerrilla. And he tweeted out, "So it begins. Come work with us. We need a Java expert. And while we are on this subject, this might trigger some interest and tickle your Java senses." So he's putting out a job listing, and he's also saying it begins. Now this, I believe, was tweeted out on April 11th, 2019. So it's hard to say if that's maybe when the project got greenlit or when it entered full production. Maybe in 2018, they were in the hiring phase, the conceptual stages, trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do, maybe waiting to get the green light from Sony. I'm sure that they were testing a lot of different things. Maybe they were testing the return of Killzone, but Sony was like, nah, let's do something else. Maybe they didn't want to do Killzone. Maybe they had to convince Sony that they were the right people to bring SOCOM back, because for those who may remember, the last SOCOM game was an absolute disaster for Sony, not only because it wasn't really what people wanted from SOCOM, but on top of that, it came out at around the same time that PSN got hacked, and that was a multiplayer-heavy game, and that essentially ended SOCOM and put it to rest. Now, if it's not SOCOM, it could just be a new IP of some sort. It is worth mentioning as well, I did say that I was going to let you know why it seems obvious this is a multiplayer title. It does say in the job listing that they are looking for somebody who can, create matchmaking, tournaments, clans, and leaderboards. This is stuff that the job listing specifically mentions. So it is very obvious that whatever this title is going to have a multiplayer component. That doesn't mean it's going to be a multiplayer only title, but it does certainly mean it will have multiplayer elements to it. And I think that that just kind of lends even more credence to the idea that we could be looking at the return of SOCOM. You look at who they're hiring. These are individuals who worked on a modern military shooter, a tactical shooter. That's exactly what SOCOM is. The big thing that I think people are wondering is, if this is in fact what Guerrilla Games' second team is working on, is it going to be first person? I think people have that assumption because Guerrilla Games is known for Killzone, which is an FPS, but that's not what SOCOM is. SOCOM is a third-person tactical shooter. I would assume if it's going to be SOCOM, they're going to keep it third-person because that's the expectation. And I feel like making it first-person would just deviate a little bit too much from what people remember, SOCOM as. Finally, one more time here, if it's not SOCOM, it could very well be a new IP, just some type of shooter game. That's just a brand new IP. That's always a possibility. And I did mention earlier that it is possible they are working on some type of multiplayer component for Horizon. And this is where I want to end the video by letting everybody know that this could very well be a possibility, because if you look at what Sony's doing, specifically Naughty Dog with The Last of Us series, they made The Last of Us Part 2, and it's clear that they had a second development team, maybe a smaller one, not necessarily the size of a AAA team, working on some type of multiplayer component that originally was set to release alongside The Last of Us Part 2, but they realized that it got too big, too ambitious. Now they're making it a completely separate title, which we will talk about that in a separate video because we may have a little bit of information on what else Naughty Dog may be up to. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because it does prove that Sony is willing to allow teams to kind of create these multiplayer standalone components for their big single-player AAA games. We even saw that with Ghost of Tsushima. Even though it wasn't standalone, it was packaged in with Ghost of Tsushima. Still, it's something that they're willing to do. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. A lot of interesting information here. Maybe not good news for Killzone fans, but rest assured they are working on something over there at Guerrilla Games that we currently don't know about, and it does seem likely we will learn about it sometime this year. So at this point, I want you to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about all of this information? Are you disappointed to hear that they're retiring the official Killzone website? And what do you think the secret title is that Guerrilla Games is working on? Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Hit the bell notification icon and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.